We're back today with the APEX team. We talked about a few things around the APEX model and the 3 pillars that support APEX. But today we're just going to talk into a couple more parts of how we can drive APEX with our partners and some of the use cases and models around that. So by way of introduction again, Dominic, Vincent, I run the Dell business with an Arrow. Joined here with Steve, my colleague, and also a couple of the APEX team from the UK and EMEA. So, Steve.
Great, thanks so much, Dom. Steve Horobin, I manage the pre-sales team within Arrow, working very closely with Dom on the Dell account.
Adam Lawton, I'm the APEX partner specialist for the UK. Matt Goodley, sales and strategy leader for APEX across EMEA.
Welcome back, and thanks for joining us again. It's a pleasure to have you. We, as I said in sort of the preamble, there, we spoke about APEX and what it is, the benefits for our partners, and how we can take that out to market. But I guess a couple of things that we can pick up on are what are some of the use cases and models that we're seeing out there, and what's been really successful for you guys?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I guess in terms of use cases, it kind of reverts a little bit to the 3 pillars that we talked about in the last conversation. So we have very much customers wanting to run and enhance workloads running in the hyperscale environments. We have customers who are looking to utilize the common tools that they use in the host hyperscale environments on-premise as well, in those hybrid cloud environments. And we also have customers looking to move much more to an as-a-service model, getting away from maybe managing IT themselves, getting away from outright purchasing, and moving towards that consumption model. They're kind of the 3 key tenets that we talk about when we talk about APEX, and those are kind of the 3 main use cases. I think the main use cases we see around the multi-cloud piece, first off, around when we take our technology from on-prem and make it available in the public cloud. Today it's really around, we're seeing a lot in really around enhancing performance and availability of those services. Those basic resources within the hyperscalers, they're very good and available, but there's certainly a degree of value that we can add on top of that. And those customers are really trying to drive additional value out of that. They're also looking to use some of their committed cloud spend that they have. So many of them have committed to spend with, for example, the AWSs or the Azures of the world, and they're not necessarily been able to utilize all that. So it's a great way of them being able to utilize that spend that they've committed to, but also enhance the value and actually to do more, at the end of the day. Whereas the hybrid cloud work is really around how do I get a simpler operating model for my workloads, whether they're in the public cloud or on premise. And we're seeing that in all kinds of different vertical markets today. We're seeing it in finance, we're seeing it in healthcare particularly, and public sector. And there's no real limit around particular verticals that we see. It's a kind of a ubiquitous message, I think it's fair to say. And the as-a-service piece, again, that just kind of overlays onto everything at the end of the day.
I guess, you touched on some of those use cases there and the verticalization of that. I guess, as we've seen, trending through IT in history, we've seen, virtualization, we've seen cloud. Yeah. AI is obviously coming into that modeling. How does, AI fit in with the APEX model? Or, I guess it's all encompassing, right?
Yeah, well, that's the great thing, as we kind of talked about last time, is because we can effectively utilize the whole extent of the Dell Technologies portfolio and then build an APEX consumption model around it, it means we can solve pretty much for any customer challenge. So if the customer wants a shed load of servers with GPUs in them, for example, and some scale-out object storage to do analytics on, we can put all that into an APEX consumption model, and into a subscription.
Yeah, that's a technical term for servers, right? A shed load.
Yeah, a shed load. Yeah, I thought it's a good quantifiable number.
I think so. But I think we sort of touched on this last time when we said it's just the ability to say yes, right? So you talk about different use cases, and we've talked about some different industries. I get asked this all the time. You go, "Well, what industries are using APEX?" And I'm like, "Well, all of them actually." But it's not necessarily about the industry; it's about the workload. And if you've got variable consumption, or if you're in a growth environment, or you may have a customer says, my stated aim is to move these workloads from on-prem to the hyperscalers. Well, if you think about how that workload is and what you're consuming, and actually you may not be consuming all the box all the time, which you aren't, then actually a consumption-based model really fits that. So it's about the specific workloads. It's not necessarily about a specific industry. You know, some industries may say, actually, I want more on-prem because of security, governance, compliance. You know, medical, for example, and healthcare is a really good one of that. But it's about the workload. What does that workload look like? What is the best commercial model, you know, to basically pay for that particular workload? And that's kind of the mindset. It's moving away from the speeds and feeds. It's talking about the actual workloads and what is the best way to consume it.
I guess, you know, touching on the workload piece, and, you know, as things change in the life cycle of, you know, that APEX contract or whatever APEX version you take out, you know, when things are developed like, you know, Copilot with Microsoft and there's new things that come in, how does that change the subscription or model that they've taken? Is there ability to bring in new technology within that existing APEX scenario that they already have in place out of those three pillars? Or
yeah, I think the answer to that is it's a flexible consumption model, right? And, you know, that sounds really like flippant, but it is flexible. Okay, so that means, again, I think we touched on it last time, it's about sort of matching revenue to costs. You know, do you need more capacity? Well, if you need more capacity, yeah, absolutely. We're a technology company. You're going to send you some more capacity, but do you want that on a co-term basis, or do you want to extend the term, or how do you want to be charged for that? And you may also be saying, actually, I've got this workload. It's on some legacy kit. I need to move it from, you know, this piece of kit to, and I'm not a technologist, this box to the new box. And then, therefore, it's about sort of matching, you know, the costs associated with that. You know, you're going to still have costs associated with this asset you may be depreciating, and actually you don't want costs for the new one. So how do you accommodate that? And look, we talk all the time about building in deferrals into an APEX model. So, you know, you can migrate workloads from, you know, legacy to new and not have the cost for the new, because, you know, you don't want that dual cost. So again, it comes back to that flexibility inherent in the model. And I think that also comes down to having those conversations with customers, you know, from a partner perspective, to say, look, how can I add value? And again, go back to the answer tends to be yes. And APEX really gives us the ability to say yes to most of these, you know, customer opportunities, I'll call them.
Back to the point I think Dom raised earlier, we're talking about the simplicity, flexibility. I guess we can also bring into that portability. So I guess is there any benefit or reason why not being able to have that application portability utilizing services provided by MSPs?
It's the similar conversation that you would potentially have with saying, actually, I've got a cloud first strategy, right? It doesn't really matter whether it's a hyperscaler or an MSP. I want to move this workload from on-prem, my own on-prem, it could be my own data center or wherever it's hosted, into an alternative provider. Okay. Well, if you did that on CapEx and you bought that kit on CapEx, you'd still be depreciating that asset. Your cost structure doesn't change. Okay. If you do that and you have an APEX model, well, if you're moving workload from your on-prem to wherever, doesn't matter where it is, you will see a reduction of costs. Because basically on an APEX model, you're making two levels of commitment, okay? How long you're going to use the kit for and what your initial commitment is. And if you move down to that commit line, let's say that's 40% for storage, which it can be, then you're going to reduce your cost down to that 40% commit mark. So whilst that your cost associated with moving that workload to a hyperscaler or a managed service provider will increase, your costs for on-prem will decrease at the same time. So you think about that graph, and I'm not going to try and do it with my hands because I look like I'm in a nightclub in Vegas, but ultimately what will happen is your on-prem cost will decrease because your utilization will decrease, whilst your cost for either your hyperscaler cost or MSP cost will increase over time. So it's about the utilization of those workloads. So yeah, I think it's a reasonable example about, you know, how the flexibility you inherent within the model can benefit a customer. It doesn't matter whether it goes to an MSP or it goes into a hyperscaler. The point is that you have flexibility on-prem and also for your off-prem environment, wherever that may be.
Yeah, and I think obviously to move the workloads around, you're also going to need common technology there. You're not going to have disparate technology stacks in each environment unless you're replatforming. So yeah, obviously from the portfolio standpoint, we can accommodate that. It's just a case of finding the operating model that works and aligning to that as well.
So I guess to follow on from what we talk about MSPs and the workloads, use cases, and operating models.
Yeah.
How have you seen the change in direction of the partners that we traditionally work with? So, we have the traditional VAR partners, and then we're seeing this movement to MSPs and CSPs. But I guess conversely, we're seeing different types of partners that we've never worked with that are coming into scope. And how have you seen the adoption of APEX with that partner base, and how do you see that evolving?
Yeah, I think it's twofold. So there's been a lot of consolidation in the IT market locally. You've seen resellers acquiring service providers acquiring resellers, trying to diversify what they do as businesses. And APEX definitely aligns with those partners really well. You've got an example, I've seen with large resellers who suddenly want to get more into that managed service provision because actually they realise there's it's a great longer term revenue stream for them. There's the ability for them to add and clothe services around those relationships with those customers that they've traditionally maybe just transacted every 2-3 years on that normal refresh cycle. Whereas now, actually, those services give them that additional stickiness, and APEX aligns to that really well because obviously you're moving from a traditional, you go in, sell something, and through a good partner you'll be keeping in regular touch and servicing that customer. But that's not everybody. Not everyone does that, and partners have lots of different approaches. And I'm not saying there's a right or a wrong way, but that annuity business gives that additional point of touch as well. So again, it aligns to those partners who are doing managed service provision as well as the traditional resale piece. They're getting very much on board with it, and especially the way that our partner program works, they also see the rewards for doing it. It really does help them, incentivize them, gives them additional opportunity within the business as well.
Yeah, I think for us in Arrow world, it brings a new type of partner that we don't traditionally work with you guys, right? So we have a big cloud practice that we can tap into to bring that in because they're used to that model and they like that.
Yeah, I'd say the same. We see partners who've been maybe focused on one cloud provider like Azure or an AWS who suddenly actually, hey, we want to talk to you, we want to engage with you because we know that actually you've got offerings that can help us extend our footprint. So we can extend from what we're doing just in AWS actually to the customer's site through some of the solution offerings we have. And we can also still align that to that cloud operating model which we've been delivering already.
Yeah, I guess to pick up on that operating model, and we've seen that some of these partners are used to different ways of transacting that business and deferral models and things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, is that something that they can just fully walk into straight away?
Yeah, absolutely. So look, for us, we've got different ways of going to market, right? So yes, we've got a direct model. I know you don't want to hear about that today, but yes, we do transact with some of our customers directly. But we're seeing more and more of our customers going via the channel. And that is whether it's a cloud service provider, a managed service provider, whether it's resale, then all of these options are available. So, if you are a partner and you want to act as an MSP or a CSP, or you want to act as a reseller, that's absolutely fine. We can absolutely accommodate that. And all of those aspects, whether it be deferrals, the program is the program. It's globally consistent. So, if you are an MSP, you're going to get the same commercial proposition as you would be as, acting as a reseller.
I guess when we look at it, it doesn't matter what partner type you are, whether that be traditional VAR, CSP, or MSP, or a new partner. There's an option with APEX, right?
Absolutely. Ability to say yes. Yeah.
I think we've spoken a lot about partner types and how we do that. And I think, Steve, you've got a question about how we prospect and identify that.
Well, yeah, basically that, from the marketplace that we're all working in, we're looking at the multitude of number of partners in different business sectors, different areas, different verticals maybe. How do you spot and identify a good APEX opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, it varies by which offer, I think it's fair to say. So, but I think if we focus on the subscriptions piece, because that's probably the most applicable, it really does vary. But I mean, the first thing is in those early conversations I kind of alluded to on the last podcast is, have the conversation early with them, do that discovery about actually how are they looking to consume. You might say, actually, are they already consuming cloud services from other providers? Are they using public cloud? Are they using software subscriptions? Are they already in that mindset that they are moving more towards annuity type consumption versus going out and buying stuff?
So they got that familiarity already.
They understand how it works and how that business model operates, and actually the benefits that they get as an organisation for doing it that way as well.
That makes a lot of sense.
Matt, if you want to elaborate on that, I guess.
Yeah, look, I think that, again, we keep going back. You can say yes to stuff, right? But it's about customers are already paying for what they consume, as Adam has alluded to, whether that be in the hyperscalers or whether it be, software as a service, etc. So I think, all of these customers, they probably want to have this kind of conversation. They want that particular option. But for me as well, I think that, when you're looking at current customers and they've got legacy equipment and they're looking for things like tech refresh, well, I think tech refresh is something that is actually something that's perfect for a consumption model. Because I think we spoke about it last time, when we know that customers aren't getting to their total utilization or maximum utilization until quite late on in that cycle for that equipment. So actually, if we know they're not utilizing the vast majority of that equipment on their existing array, well, actually having a conversation about paying for what you consume and not having to depreciate the full value of that asset over time has to be a good conversation.
Yeah.
So I think, there are certain aspects which I think we can really, really focus on. I think tech refresh is most definitely one of those.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important point, because I think it's something that partners can really go after and get their teeth stuck into and actually understand. And it's quite a simple message.
And especially utilising like the tools that we have, like deferral, it can really you can really accelerate those refresh cycles, especially if they're really thinking about, actually, as a business right now, I don't have enough budget to refresh, and I'm going to renew instead. So actually we're in the 3 or 4 years or whatever it is, and I'm going to renew because I've only got enough really budget for that. Well, actually, if we go down a consumption model route, we can actually navigate around that particular problem by, effectively, they're going to pay for what they consume as opposed to having to buy the whole estate.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, right? Is that, we often talk about new partners and finding new opportunities, but it's the existing book of business that's already there. And it's, you guys have transformed. How do we help those partners transform with us as we go on that journey together? So, looking at that lifecycle management is really key, because it can just transform and change that parameter of what that partner looks like moving forward.
Yeah, and look, the use of that conversation with a commercial model gives that customer a load more benefit, right? They have modern infrastructure, which is not going to have so much space within the data center, so a reduction of costs. It's not going to take so much power and cooling, a reduction of costs. And also it plays into, we spoke about it last time again, about the environmental issues as well. If you're going to cut down emissions, then actually having refresh is a good way of doing it. Yeah. And actually, us taking that equipment back and recycling, repurposing, reusing, is a good message for customers as well.
And I guess on that messaging, sorry, Steve.
No, okay.
I guess on that messaging is, when we see customers come out to tender and things like that, how core a proponent of the ESG messaging and that sustainability piece are you guys seeing, and that adoption of APEX into hitting that brief for those board level people within the customer base? More and more, right?
Adam, you're getting tenders out, RFPs, RFQs, and ESG is quite, it's becoming more and more, definitely a higher proportion of the scoring is on those aspects. So it's really, really important. And I think the consumption message can, absolutely lead into those conversations as well. You have a Dell-owned asset, then we're taking it back. We're responsible for recycling, repurposing, etc. And that's something that I think is going to be, increasingly important, again, for our customers and our partners as well.
One thing I was going to add into that, I know we were talking about technology refresh and the benefits that can have. Obviously, from Dell to Dell, then we generally can work out or obtain the installation date. We know the expiry date.
Yep.
We know when to engage. But what about non-Dell to Dell?
Well, we love non-Dell to Dell, isn't it?
Thanks very much.
That'd be perfect.
And actually, from a partner perspective, we do have if you're probably familiar from the storage programs, there's a program called Competitive Swap. That's completely aligned with APEX, so you can do a competitive swap APEX opportunity and get rewarded handsomely for doing so.
You absolutely do, yeah.
But from when we say non-competitive, then other vendors, so there's ways that we can work with the APEX program to bring people from competitive offerings into the Dell program, not just from the storage point of view, but also around the service as well, and maybe even networking. Let's bring it all together.
Yeah, look, we can. I mean, look, you're kind of looking at that from it's kind of business as usual, right?
Sure.
Whether you're Dell or another competitor, you're looking to replace your competitor's kit in a customer's data center. So, and I think the point about the APEX offering is that we're giving, it makes it a little bit easier. It's an easier conversation to move from one to another. And again, you go back to the deferral conversation about not having dual running costs, et cetera, et cetera. So we will show flexibility to most definitely have competitor swap out, most definitely.
Yeah. So people don't need to shy away from that.
No, absolutely not. I mean, look, tech refresh, of course, tech refresh, Dell to Dell, absolutely. We can control that, and we control that with our partners. But tech refresh from a competitor to Dell, that makes our execs, being from ear to ear, to be honest with you.
Yeah, for more opportunity for the sales teams.
Yes, most definitely.
Yeah, at the end of the day, we're always looking for net new logos. So.
Adam, Matt, Steve, thank you for joining us. It was a really good discussion again, and like last time when we talked about APEX, how simple it is, how consistent and flexible it is, time to market, time to revenue. We hit some new sort of discussion points on this series where we talked about the sustainability and ESG perspective, but also looking at transformative partner power that we can deliver to them, but also what the use cases and workloads and operational models are around that. So thank you again for joining us. I think, call to action is, again, just work with Dell, work with the APEX team, work with the Arrow team, and let's take Dell APEX out to market. Thank you.